Hello everybody, Dave here for the next instalment of Dave Guess Wood. And what's it been? It was yesterday that I did the last bit of the video, where I said I need to nip to B&Q and I'll have a look at if there are different, if there may be a different shade of varnish that I'd rather try and use. Well, I can give some information on that. I checked before I went and I checked when I was there. There are others I could use, but of the range that I'm using, and I didn't look beyond that because I don't see the point in like this is a Ronseal. I don't see the point in mixing it with another brand because it might not might not work. Anyway, so we had a look. I say me. Okay, there was one that was lighter. Was it one? No, sorry, there was two that was lighter. There was Antique Pine, which was very light, and there was Teak, which was reddish but light. Didn't really, not my cup of tea. Of the darker, the next darkest was the Deep Mahogany, and I don't want to go down that route. There was another one though, which was Walnut, but that was dark, and that might actually have been the sort of colour that this had on it originally, but it was, yeah, it was very, very dark. So looking at the different colours when I was there, I came to the conclusion that I'm using the right one. So we'll just have to, if I want it to be a little bit darker, I'm just going to have to keep applying it. I've just had a crazy idea. What would happen if I was to mix the black or blue powder that makes the colour in the resin into the varnish? Now the blue into the varnish won't make sense, but a little bit of black in there might give it a little slightly, but it won't work. But for a clear varnish, putting the blue in there could that create a clear varnish with blue bits in it? I've not even considered that. I might have to try that out, just out of interest. Anyway, I'm not gonna do it now. It's probably a crazy fucking idea, but I'm just curious what the. Ooh, ow, that just started hurting. That was not very nice. Yeah, so anyway, right, where are we up to with these? Right, two of the legs have got 4 coats on. These two have had 2 coats, and we're going to get the next 2 coats put on these if my head doesn't keep hurting. Oh. And yes, we're going to get 2 more coats put onto these if we can. I had intended on doing as much as physically possible on these today, but I've ended up having to do things today that I would normally do tomorrow because I'm not going to be at home tomorrow. Okay, let's move the camera. We're going to make a start on our workings on this one. So yeah, so I was hoping, to be honest, to get loads and loads of coats on these today, but yeah, it's just not to be. I mean, it's just started going dark, which means it's probably somewhere in the region of 4 or 5 o'clock. And I mean, I've already had a bite to eat, but I'm already feeling a bit tired, so I may need to grab a nap, which seems to have become a regular occurrence for me recently. Considering I used to hate trying to nap, it never did go well for me, never liked it. But you know, whereas nowadays I pretty much can't function without one. And there's a few things I want to try and get done this evening as well, so I'm not going to go rushing this just to try and get loads on. I'd rather take my time with it, to be honest. But also I am curious what would happen with the colour in there. I might try it at the end of this video on one of my spare pieces of wood, just out of sheer interest. Well, I can't imagine it would fucking work or do anything, but it's one of those things you don't know until you try. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it would be very easy to add some kind of colourant into these varnishes, but it's not something I've done, so it's not something I'm intending on doing for this. But there's no harm in finding out what happens if we mix stuff on a scrap bit of wood. Now, I was tempted to do more on the other two legs, so go from having 4 to say 6. But I did decide against that because I didn't want to, it's going to sound stupid this, but I didn't want to feel like I was playing catch up with these two legs. It's just about the way my mind thinks. In that, for example, okay, I can apply 2 coats to these fairly quickly, probably in about 25-30 minutes. But if I need to apply 4 coats, then that could bug me, that it's 4 coats that I'm behind. And I would also be thinking, well, that's going to take me 2 videos, so it's going to take me 40 to 50 minutes. And then that starts being a thinking too far ahead, which I don't need. So I figured, no, you know what, I'll keep it simple. Doing 2 coats I can do in about 25-30 minutes, as I've said, which can be a decent video length. Probably longer than I would prefer, but I can get it on the one video and without giving myself any additional headache. Although I have really kind of had to force myself to do this right now, because part of me did want to just think, fuck it. I don't feel like doing anything, I'll just chill out or go to sleep, but I need to do what I can. I need to do little bits where I can, because that helps. It helps with the mentality, it helps with getting stuff done. I mean, it's even sort of like when it comes to things like food and I know I've got food in the fridge, food in the freezer. I've got meals that have already been cooked that are frozen and just need heating up, or I've got other meals that are in the freezer that I can get cooked pretty quick and pretty easy. But in comes the thought of, fuck it, you can't be arsed. Fuck it, just order food in, but I can't afford to go and just ordering food in. As stupid as it might sound, that kind of stuff really needs saving for when I really can't stand there and cook, and that is what I normally do try and do. Tends to be on the days where I've perhaps done the most and or I'm hurting, well, done the most and hurting the most, that I would do things like order in rather than try and stand there and cook. But then, like days like today, I think it would literally be pure fucking laziness, and yeah. We'll see. I mean, yesterday, I had a nap yesterday, woke up from that feeling refreshed and lively. The day before, woke up for a nap and felt like shit and felt like I needed to sleep for another 12 hours. But, so this is where, if I go for a nap and I wake up feeling like shit, I need to try and make sure that I don't just go, fuck it, I'll order food in. So getting to sort of coat 3 and 4, it has taken the wood to a level of shine, which is very nice. With looking at the possibility of different colours, I mean, I was second guessing myself of, is this the right colour to use, is the renewal? And it's only right in those situations to, and there's nothing wrong with going, well, check, because it'd be easier to sort that out at that point than it would be many more coats down the line. And in the end, what it resulted in was basically finding out that I'm doing the right one for me. So it just sort of reaffirms the direction that we're going. Some off, but it might still be too much on there. I'm getting tired. So that particular piece there has come up looking very nice. Interesting as well. Again, maybe struggling with a bit of seeing shadow more than anything, but The quality of reflection is slowly coming along quite nicely. So there is a reflection, but it's quite blurred. Obviously, the more gloss that goes down, and the more reflective it becomes, the cleaner that'll be. Oh, there's too much on there as well. Get those ends done. We've got a little streak. As you remember, I did say as well that once I've done 4 coats on the top and the bottom, I would not put any more coats on the top and the bottom. And one thing that may allow me to do is potentially, if I want to, I can work on all 4 legs at the same time. The only thing is it would mean moving them about quite a bit, and I don't really want to be doing that. Oh, well, they're looking quite nice. They've got another coat to go. I mean, yeah, it is still soaking in. So although, from me that I can see now, this is it's almost got like a very wet look. But then this side here, it's already soaked in a bit more, and it's a little duller because it's dried. It's also a little duller because of the lighting, but yeah, it is a little duller. But that's to be expected. I'm basically just waffling for a few moments just to give it a little bit of extra time to dry before I start applying the next coat here. As I said, the aim I want to do here is to get the 2 coats on these. That's my goal, nothing else. Excuse me. Set a small goal and accomplish it. And then hopefully at some point hopefully some point in the near future, I'll have a day where I do a lot more. But to be honest, it's not like there's a lot more for me to do. It's basically applying coats to these table legs until I'm happy with the colour. And I don't really want to go rushing it too quick. Let's get onto the next cut, shall we? We should turn our cloth to give us a slightly cleaner edge. And something I wouldn't have minded doing if I'd have had a workshop and enough stuff would have been to basically build a bath for the legs and put some varnish into said bath and just completely like submerge the wood, so not like lying down, but probably could have done it lying down, but I would have thought more stood up, so that a bottom half wouldn't soak in more in, I don't know, basically do gravity and shit, is what I'd be thinking, and just sort of leave the wood to sit in the bath for a while and just really soak in the colours and stuff. I mean, be a bit overkill, but at the same time, I mean, I'm thinking of, okay, let's say I wanted to do this in a way that would have even less impact on me physically. So rather than me sitting here having to apply all these coats, is there a way that it could be done with much less impact on me? And maybe is the answer, if it was done in that way. Would it create a nice finish? Well, I doubt that, but it would potentially, oh, that may have a streak on it. Oh, sorry. The cloth grabbed a little bit on it, so would suggest it was catching or something. Yeah, so they could be dipped and left to soak in like this kind of dark oak varnish. So what I would be doing is getting the bath, putting the stuff in, putting the wood in the bath, leaving it. Then taking them out and then doing the finishing part. So I could effectively cut the amount of work I'd be doing down by half, at least. But would it work? I've no idea, probably. But it would take, there would be complications to it. For example, you would need quite a lot of the varnish, probably a lot more than what I'm using, because you would need to be able to fill the bath or vat, or not fill it, but put enough in it that when you put the leg in it, it is completely submerged, which means you'd be using a lot of the varnish, and there would potentially be a lot of wastage. You'd also probably have to keep an eye on it in case it, because if it was, the whole thing was submerged, but it soaked it in so much that the level of the varnish dropped, if you've got any exposed wood, then that's not getting stained anymore. Oh dear. Another way to do it without it being as physically taxing for me is to get someone else to do it. But then that kind of defeats the purpose, or not the purpose, it defeats the, well yeah, it defeats the purpose of what I'm doing and why I'm doing. And to be honest, it's the why that I have to remember is actually the important part. It's not for anyone else. It's not for anything else other than my own personal well-being. Even if it comes in a slightly backwards sense of this table has been bugging me because it's been there waiting to be done for so long. And I know when I've finished it, I will feel considerably better about that. I mean, it was definitely a little difficult over the end of last year and Christmas, where I was doing things because I wanted to, but I was like giving myself deadlines and putting pressure on myself, and so the actual enjoyment, a lot of the enjoyment of it wasn't quite there, because I was always thinking, I need to get it done, I need to get it done, I need to get it done, I'm behind, and I don't like that. Some lovely colours on there now. Unfortunately, still the camera, it still isn't making them look as good as they look in person, but it's interesting as well. I think some people haven't realised that I make these videos using an iPhone. That's why I used the camera on the iPhone for all of these videos. So although it is a 1080 HD camera, it's not the same as using like a camcorder or a webcam, or something of that nature. It will have its limitations. Gripped on there quite a bit. Oh, okay then? Yeah, we're okay. So one of the things from doing this for a while now is when wiping off the excess, the cloth feels a particular way going over the wood. And if it starts grabbing, so it's sticking a bit, it basically, from what I've been learning, is it either means that my cloth is getting too gunky and I need to change side, or there's more of an excess than I thought there was. So on the far side, as I'm wiping and it's grabbing, it could be where from when I've applied this face, it's also put a bit extra there, and I need to sort it out. Hence, sorting it out. Right. I mean, I do find some of this stuff is a lot of it is down to feel. It can be the look, it can be the feel, it can be visual rather than follow the rules. As we know, like on this tin, it says apply 3 coats. Well, it needs more than 3, so. But it's through the feel of the wood, the look of the wood, that lets me know that something's different, or I need to do something different. Same as when I was carving by hand. the noises the wood would make, the noises the wood makes when you're carving is different when you come across a split or a gap, or sorry, a split compared to a gap, or getting to a split rather than going through solid wood. There are subtle feels and sounds with that that I was starting to become quite aware of. Now, one I will try and do, if I should have the time on the camera. Once I've put this on these two sides, that's these up to 4, and then I will try doing a little bit of clear with some of the colour, just to see what it's like on a scrap piece of wood. Oh, excuse me. Okay, now to the what Will says, I'm not going to do any more on these today. My arm is aching, I'm feeling a bit tired, so look after myself a little bit. Sponges are going to mind doing. Not that you can see what was happening, but basically it keeps standing up on its end. Well, I do hope on the video, because I mean I'm only looking at sort of every now and again, but I do hope on the video that it really does show the improvement of how these are looking. I mean, compared to how they were before I started, they look a hell of a lot better. I just need them to be a little bit darker. To end. Okay, so now we can go for trying a little experiment. So what I'm going to do is pop that over there. Leave that for a moment. I'm just going to stop the recording so I'll get everything sorted out, and then we'll see how the experiment goes. Okay, so for the experiment then, we've got a bit of clear varnish here. Even though it's white, it will actually dry clear. And then what we're going to do is we've got the blue mica or mica powder, which is sort of metallic, it's got flecks in it. So we'll drop a bit of this in there. I have no idea how to make it look. Okay, I'll put in a similar amount as if I was going to be putting it in the resin. Now I've got a piece of scrap wood here, and it's actually the piece I did my first resin tests on. I've still got that, so I'll give this a little mix now. So, like I say, this I have no idea what this will do, because the varnish should dry clear, but obviously it's got a colour pigment in it now, so it's probably not going to dry clear at all. But then it's a varnish with colour. Oh, it's bubbling up a bit. It's maybe having a slightly odd reaction. It's not something you would normally say mix a colour in. I mean, varnish isn't quite like paint. I've mixed that in a bit. I've got a little sponge here. I am fascinated to, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually just going to look really shit. It's not looking good on there, I'll be honest. Now it could be because the wood's soaking loads in. Maybe it's something that if it was put on thicker might work, but well, it's all part of experimenting. You don't know what's going to happen, so you find out what's going to happen. So let's wipe off any excess. I mean, the wood's not in the greatest of condition, right, but yeah, this particular type of wood does like to soak a lot in. I mean, it's quite a thick substance. It has got quite a nice colour to it. Let's see if I can leave a bit of a thick layer there. But looking at it, I think it's one of those things where, a bit like there, as a thick layer, it might not be too bad. It's a lot like resin, but a layer or like this where trying to sort of keep it thin like you would with a varnish, it's not giving an even spread. It's unusual, that's for certain. Yeah, so it's a thicker application. It seems happier. I mean, that bit is kind of sparkly, but it's very transparent. Yeah, you can see a lot of the wood through. I mean, okay, with it being a varnish, maybe if it could be left and reapplied and left and reapplied, it might work. But to be honest, it's not like I've got an idea of an application for this. It was just simply curious. Okay, well, I think what I'm going to do on that is leave that as it is now, and we'll see what happens after they've dried up. I mean, they've got air bubbles in and stuff, but yeah, I don't really care about that. It's simply a scientific experiment. Pop that on there, because if that doesn't dry, because this thing, With this being a varnish and not a resin, that shouldn't dry in there, that shouldn't go off. Whereas with the resin, it's a chemical reaction between the two things that heats them up, mixes them together, cools them down and solidifies them, whereas varnish is reactive to air. So yes, there's a bit of air in there, but no different to the little bit of air that's in the top of there, and all that varnish don't go off. Okay, right, so I'm going to leave them, and we shall see what's happened to them next time. See you in a bit.